9.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
The best ideas are free with Ben Young from Bwaggy.com.
Well, there was a public holiday and a bit of sickness that got in the way, so it's been a wee while since Ben Young's been on the show. G'day there, Ben.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Much better now. Much. It was a big day out in the rain, which did me in.
Oh, yeah.
And then we had Auckland anniversary weekend.
Yeah. So there's a lot happened in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I thought we'd just touch on a few topics, because at the start of each week we usually talk about a few of these. Like government looking at privatisation or partial sale of government assets.
That was announced just over a week ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, what's your take on that?
Well, I think it was a great time to release that statement, given all the other information around the level of borrowing that New Zealand is doing. So on a political side, it was definitely a political win, because you had the opposition saying we want to spend more money, and then you had the number come out of how much as a nation we're loaning a week, and then you had the other party going, no, we can't spend money, we've got to free up money. So it was quite interesting. But privatisation is always a tough topic in New Zealand, given what's happened in the past.
It's very emotional, isn't it?
I think partial sale is probably the right way to go, in terms of the intentions are to free up some assets, let Kiwis invest. So one of the criteria is that they want Kiwis to be taking up the investment. Of course, over time that can creep out offshore, clearly. And then they're going to use the money to reinvest in other assets. So that kind of makes sense. Just frees it up, gives Kiwis an investment option. The investment community has stated that...
Is it the right investment option, though, when perhaps Kiwis should be investing in private businesses that are exporting goods overseas, businesses that are growing, rather than these big safe as houses type investments that are very insular and inward looking? There's
always the argument for that, and a lot of savvy investors will be investing in that amount, but there's still the portfolio. You need a certain amount that's safe, and the Kiwi investment community has been shaken up a bit, especially baby boomers, with all the collapsing of the finance companies. So actually, instead of investing that money, a lot of them are holding on to it because they're a bit cautious. So this actually will open up an opportunity for them to free up some of that money.
What about also the fact the government's kind of fiddled this, really, in that in talking about this debt that the country has, they haven't told the public what the difference is between private and public debt is. And,
that's the interesting thing in the media. Some are quoting what the public debt is, some are doing what the private debt is, and then some are quoting the total.
Yes.
So, to be honest, having read all three of those mixtures, and I've realised each time that I've read them, I'm not sure what the actual level of public and private is.
No, that's the thing. It's the views confusion as a tool to say, oh, this needs to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
And what about the risk, though, that I'm sure that they'll give first dibs to so-called, I hate using the term, but they use it mum and dad investors, which is a crap term. It doesn't mean anything. What about the fact that they won't be able to possibly prevent overseas buyers buying into...
Yeah, so that's what I was saying. In the initial filing, you can say New Zealand only.
Yeah.
But after a while, it tends to filter out offshore.
And what about the loss of dividends to the government, even though they will still have a stake, but loss of dividends for what is a very good investment currently, and it has a very high yield and good return.
So the idea is that if they can shift that capital into growing assets, they'll get a better return on that money. So, for example, if you imagine the government's got $100 and the $100 is in those state companies, it's going to sell $40 worth of shares, and it's going to shift them somewhere else which are typically higher growth. Because at the moment, the companies that they hold are very mature, they hold a strong marketplace, and you're right, they do provide a good return. But they provide a good return for the kind of company they are. If the government reallocates those assets into growing sectors in the New Zealand economy, they're actually going to get a better return. It's kind of going, we acknowledge this as a good investment, so let's not get rid of all of it, but let's free up some of this capital so we can invest it in other areas. And it's just the same. In investing, you take some safe bets and a little bit more risky. So that's the main intention behind it. And the benefit for Kiwis is that we'll see this money being reinvested in other areas which are growing, which means, and I would suggest that there probably are export sectors,
that's what we need. We need to sell more stuff overseas.
Yeah, exactly. That is the crux of any problem that New Zealand's economy has. We need to sell more stuff overseas.
And preferably it's our expertise rather than our natural resources as well.
Interestingly, tourism is growing quite rapidly at the moment with new route development opening up.
Yeah.
Like just when Air Asia launched on their launch flights, they estimated, this was in the Herald, that would create $63 million of gross domestic product from the travellers flying into New Zealand. So opening up these new routes through Asia is helping more tourists come here, which is interesting.
And that cycleway, that's making big headway.
Yeah, I can't wait till the cycleway comes out. I'd love to do it. Well, it becomes a great story, doesn't it? Like, what do you do over the summer if you're English? Oh, well, we went down to New Zealand. We cycled the length of the country, and it really fits in with people's perception of our country.
Okay, what else has been catching your eye over the past couple of weeks?
There's been a little bit of commentary around, well, not a little bit, a lot around the internet shutdown in Egypt.
Yeah.
Which is amazing that for a whole country they can just shut the internet down. And it shows how much control the government has over the two pipes coming in and out of Egypt. And there was a lot of commentary around the states. Could you actually shut the internet down there? And they said it's like a leaky sieve. The states could almost shut everyone else off and still have the internet, really.
Because that's the way it was designed initially, as a military device, that if something was shut off somewhere, it would reroute and still connect. Yeah,
so an interesting thing is New Zealand is almost in the same scenario as Egypt, because we've got two pipes. We've got the old pipe and the new pipe coming in and out. So if those...
And they go through Telecom's building, right? Or something like that. So you'd only have to ask Telecom, wouldn't you?
Yeah, in the WikiLeaks cables, there was security concern that the key cable came in on a
Takapuna, I think.
Yeah, North Shore beach.
Yeah.
And there was no security around it or something. So
was that the Pacific? Was it what do they call that one? That goes basically from the States down through some Pacific Islands to New Zealand.
Oh, I forget the name avoids me. But yeah, so interesting. New Zealand is kind of in a similar scenario. Pacific Fiber's trying to change that by adding a third pipe, which would be quite useful. But yeah, the idea of the internet just being completely shut down. And there was some comedian, or was it Conan O'Brien in the States said, how can you expect people to go home, do nothing, not use the internet, and not riot? It's like people are at home, they've got nothing to do because you've shut the internet off.
Perhaps it exacerbated the situation, perhaps.
Yeah.
What else?
Google versus Bing.
Yeah.
So last week we had a bit of a discussion about this. Google has suggested to Bing that it was copying its search results, and it did so in a public manner, which is really, really interesting, because this is the kind of stuff that...
Some people might be going, Bing, what's that?
Yeah, so Bing is Microsoft's search engine.
Yeah, you wouldn't know it, though, would you?
Yeah, well, in New Zealand, and it depends who you talk to, but Google has about 80 to 95% market share in New Zealand. So Google is number one here by a long shot. But Bing is used in the States by, I think, up to 35%.
Is that because a lot of people's home pages default to, say, like a Microsoft service?
I would suspect so.
And if you're using Internet Explorer, then you're
the Bing.
Yeah, the default.
Yeah. So a lot of corporates would be using Bing, I would suggest. And also, interestingly, from a advertiser's perspective, we get different results between Google and Bing in terms of Bing took over the Yahoo network. So if you're selling entertainment kind of products, they work really well through the Bing network, because a lot of the content on Yahoo is entertainment focused.
Yeah. So
that's the kind of stuff that people are looking for. I know this is really, really generalising, but it's just what we've found over advertising over the two different networks.
Interesting.
Whereas, and again, generalising, hardware and software kind of products tend to sell better on Google. So yeah, there are subtle differences between the two.
But Bing, as you say, Bing copying Google's
results. So what
results.
happened was Google, and I would say Bing, are doing this as well. What they do is they check on their competitors to see what their search results are like. And what they noticed in the middle of last year, or third quarter last year, was that Bing's search results were getting closer and closer to theirs. And they thought this is a little bit unusual, because if you kind of look at all the data that you've got and all the data that Microsoft has got, there's, the amount of variance should be fairly the same, and if there's a significant change, that suggests something's going on.
Yeah. And
so what they did is they did a bit of a sting, and they preloaded certain search results on keywords which no one would search for, and almost just typos. and they fixed it so that one search result would show up. And then within 2 weeks, that was showing up on Microsoft's search results as number one.
Huh.
So they said, well, hang on, where'd you get that information?
Yeah.
And what was happening is both Google and Microsoft, they monitor what you do on your browser if you allow them. And Google doesn't link that back to search results, but Microsoft does.
Right.
So when Google's engineers were searching for those search results at home using Bing, Microsoft was picking up that data and then said, okay, so this website's relevant to that keyword, and they put that in their search results.
It's not a bad thing, though, is it? I mean, it's, you're just using all the tools available to make sure that your product is as good as possible.
Yes, so Bing apparently has 1,000 factors which help rank a website, which to me sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
And one of those factors is clickstream data, which is why those search results showed up. And the thing is, clickstream data, I suggest, wouldn't be the top variable, but because there was no other data available for these specific keywords,
Right.
it was only clickstream.
It was the only thing.
That became the most important piece
Okay.
of data. So that's why it bubbled to the top. But the catch here is, surely Microsoft should understand that that's a Google search result and it shouldn't be copying it. Like, I can see that this would arise unintentionally, but surely their response would be, we wouldn't be doing that, or we shouldn't be doing that. So it's quite interesting though, because they are bouncing back and forth in the public arena.
Are they?
Yeah.
About the...
Yeah.
It's caused a bit of a controversy.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. More at bwaggy.com, bwagy.com, also Bwaggy on Twitter as well, twitter.com/Bwaggy. Ben Young, thanks very much.